How's it going, everybody? In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the initial setup of a Cisco ASA firewall. Now, when it comes to understanding how a Cisco ASA firewall works, we definitely need to understand the initial steps in order to get it up and running. Because if you've never dealt with an ASA firewall before, or you're about to have to work with one, I know when I first started working with them, there was a little bit of a learning curve to understand exactly how the ASA firewall worked. So, with that being said, we're going to take a few minutes, go through the initial configuration of what the ASA firewall needs and some of those details behind it, and go from there. And then when we get done with getting everything up and running and we can verify some pings and things like that, then we'll be taking a look at some of the follow-on details and some follow-on videos about how we can optimize the ASA. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the configuration of what we need to know about the ASA. So let's go ahead and bring the command line over. So operationally, this is a virtual ASA. So it's running inside of Eve, and when you start working with the ASA firewall, it can be a little daunting the first time you ever play with it, because the command structure, if you're familiar with Cisco iOS on an iOS router or an iOS switch, is a little bit different and can be a little tricky to get working and get operational and things like that. So you definitely need to know some of the initial steps. So one of the first things that you're going to definitely want to do, just like you would on a regular router or a firewall or a switch, is in the enable command and hit the enter key. You're presented with this right here, this password : There is no password. Hit the enter key. It makes it very, very easy to work with. It's a little disconcerting at first because you're like, well, I never set a password. And then you're like having to go Google it. And you've learned very quickly that just hit the enter key a couple times and you'll be at the privilege level of 15 or privilege mode. So unlike iOS, there's another way of looking at it, and it's the show cur priv command. If you hit the enter key, it'll show you that your current privilege level is 15, and that's pretty much where you're at. So the question mark command works as it normally would on an iOS router. If you want to look at the interfaces that are available on the firewall, you wouldn't do a show IP interface. That command is not supported here. What you would do is you would do a show interfaces and then IP configuration and look at the brief output. Guess what? Here is your show interface IP brief. So that's how you look at the show IP interface brief command inside of an iOS router on an ASA firewall. Now let's go ahead and go to global config. That process is still the same, and you get this notice. It says help to improve ASA and blah 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 blah. We're going to type in no, we do not want to send any anonymous error reporting back. So we can change that if we want to. It gives you the call home reporting anonymous command if we want to do that. Please remember to save your configuration. So thank you for letting us know not to make a mistake. So with that being said, now we need to first name it. So I'm going to type in hostname is going to be ASA2. That initially changes the configuration to ASA2. And now we have to go configure some things. The first thing that I'm going to go and configure is going to be the inside interface, which is going to be gig 0/1. Gig 0/1 happens to be our inside interface. So I'm going to type in interface gig 0/1. I'm going to type in the IP address, and this guy is going to be 10.1.4.2/24. Okay, then I have to no shut the interfaces, because if we look right up here, there is no interfaces up. If we don't have to use the do command either, we can do a show interface IP brief, and now we can see that the interface has been configured, but it hasn't been enabled. So we'll type in no shut, type that again, now we're up. But there's one last step that we have to do. And if we look at the command, it's called show name if. And right now, the name if command is going to be what we reference throughout the rest of the configuration in terms of mapping access lists and turning features on and things like that. You would give every interface on a firewall a specific name. So we would type in name if is, in this case here would be inside, for example. Now, because I'm using the term inside, the security level is set to a value of 100 by default. Now, this was really tricky for me to understand when the first time I played with an ASA. I was like, what's a security level? Well, if you ever dealt with other firewall platforms, say, for example, like Juniper. Juniper has trust and untrust. Well, the same logic can apply, where the trusted network is going to be the inside network, and the untrusted network is going to be things like the internet. Well, Cisco, with the ASA, comes up with the security level concept and the name if. Now, if we were to go to another interface, so if we were to go to, for example, interface gig0/0 and type in IP address is going to be 102.0.0.2/24. We type in no shut. We give it the name if of outside, for example. Guess what's going to happen? We're going to get a security level of 0 by default. Anything that's not inside, so labeled inside, is going to be given the security level of 0. So if we do a show name if, we're going to see that the inside interface is gig0/1, and we have a value of 100 for the security level. The outside interface is gig0/0, and it's got a security level of 0. Now, what's actually going to end up happening is there is a high-level security zone to low-level security zone flow that happens out of the gate. Meaning, if you have an inside interface with a security level of 100 and an outside interface of security level 0, then that's going to be a natural progression or a natural flow of data. You're going to have users on the inside trying to reach things on the outside. Whether that be the internet, YouTube, research, whatever the case might be. You're definitely going to want to allow the communication from a high security level to a low security level to happen without any type of interference. Now that's going to go from 100 to 99, 99 to 98, 98 to 97, so on and so forth. But if you have a scenario where you want to go from a low security level to a higher security level, for example, outside to inside, that still is possible. You would just have to go in and create an access list to allow the traffic to flow from outside or low to high security level in order for that communication to take place. We're going to take a look at that in upcoming videos when we start talking about how you do things like NAT on the ASA or go from the DMZ to the inside or something along those lines. Now, with that being said, here we have the inside interface is set to a value of 100. We have the outside set to a value of 0. Those are okay. I'm okay with that. Now, in terms of the next steps that we need to go through and do, we can go and do the gig0/2 interface. So we'll type in interface gig0/2, and we'll use the IP address of 10.2.10.10 because we connect to router 2. Actually, I guess I could use, let me just double check with MPLS what the interface is. Show IP interface brief. And on gig0/2, I'm using .1. So I can go here and do .2/24. And I can type in name if is going to be MPLS. Now it's set to 0. So that will allow us to do the intercommunication as we need it to and things like that. So now we have that. If we do a show name if, we'll see that we have multiple interfaces, and both of the additional interfaces outside an MPLS have values of 0 for their security levels. So that's pretty much the initial setup. That's the workflow that we need to be aware of. Now, one of the things that we definitely need to be aware of in terms of a routing perspective is we need to be able to set up a static default route, or depending on the situation, the ASA that we're running, the version of code that we're playing with is show version. We're running 9.1 code or 9.9 code, so it's relatively new code in terms of operations and capabilities and stuff like that. So it's got some heft to it, right? And we have some options and capabilities that we can work with and things like that. But what we want to make sure we can do in terms of how we operate is we want to make sure we can create a static default route, and the version of code that we're running will support multiple routing protocols. We can run BGP, we can run EIGRP, OSPF, ISIS, RIP. We can do all of the different routing protocols on the ASA with obviously with limited functionality. That's okay though. We're not looking for it to, be the greatest thing since sliced bread. We just want it to be functional. So I can go in here and create a BGP peering to the MPLS router if I wanted to. Or I can create a default route towards the internet, which is what I want you guys to see. Now, in order to set up a default route, you don't type in the IP route command, right? That command is not supported. In order to create a default route, you type in route and then the interface that you want to send the traffic out of. So in this case here, it's going to be the outside interface, or gig 0/0, and then you would specify what the forward network is going to be. In this case here is 0, 0, and then you would have your next hop. In this case here, we are going to say 102, and I believe internet 1, this should be on gig 0/2. We should have gig 0/2 is 102.0.0.1. So if we go back over here and type in 102.0.0.1, there we have it. So if we do a show route, now I have a static default route in the routing table. If we do a show run route, we can see that I have a static default route. If I wanted to send traffic through the ASA firewall, I could do that, and it would go out to the internet, because that would be the gateway of last resort, and that would get us to where we want to go internet-wise. Now, I could also do a BGP peering or something along those lines, but for right now, I'm not going to do that. Now, what are the other options that we can do? And this is where, once you have some initial details configured, you want to be able to manage the ASA either out of band through the management 0 interface or over the in band, meaning over the network. So I'm going to show you how to set up out of band management, because that's going to be what we use to actually work with the ASA firewall in some capacities. So with that being said, let's go ahead and set up management interface configuration. So we're going to type in interface management 0/0, and here we're going to type in the IP address, and we could use pretty much any address we want to. In this particular case, I'm going to use the IP address of 10.255.1.32/24, and I'm going to hit the enter key. I still need to do the no shut, and then the name if is going to be MGMT, and there we go. So now I have that squared away. You'll notice that the security level goes to 0 as well for this interface, which is fine. Now, in order for me to be able to reach the firewall, one of the things that I have to do is I have to set up a static route towards it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set up a continuous ping to 10.255.1.32 and see if I can't reach it. And right now I'm unable to do so. So I'm going to move this over here. In order to set up connectivity to the ASA firewall out of band, I'm going to need to type in route MGMT and then 10.255.10.0/24 out 10.255.10.1. So as soon as I do that, in just a couple seconds, we should have ping replies start showing up in order to reach the connection. So what I should be able to do, now that that's up and running, if we do a, I'm sorry, not that one, it's 1.1. So let's do a show run route. We're actually going to get rid of this entry right here because that's actually incorrect. So momentarily we should get a ping reply, and there we go. So I had the wrong default gateway. That was my fault. So now we have ping replies. Now that's all well and great, but we won't actually be able to do anything with the connectivity until we do a little bit more to the route, to the firewall. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do I'm going to enable the HTTP session. So I do a show HTTP show run HTTP. You can see that HTTP is not enabled. So if I go, I have to type in HTTP, and I have to say server, and then enable, and then hit the enter key. I can change the SSL port that it could listen to as well if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. Then I have to tell the ASA what specific networks are you going to allow to connect to the ASA. I'm going to type in HTTP, and then this top line right here says the IP address of the host and or network authorized to access the HTTP server. I'm going to type in 10.255.10.0/24, and then on which interface do you want to allow it in on. I'm going to type in MGMT. So that allows that. So now I should be able to pull up an HTTPS connection on the ASA. Now that'll only get me to access the ASA. I still need to be able to authenticate to the ASA. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a username of Rob, and a privilege level of 15, and a password Cisco privilege level 15. And then once I have that created, I'm going to type in the AAA authentication is going to be for HTTP. I need to specify that we're going to use the console and use the local database. Now the console is just a term. So it's basically I'm going to be trying to connect to the ASA via its console line, but it doesn't necessarily mean the actual physical cable console. So there's that. So now I should be able to, if I wanted to, connect to the ASA, and everything should work that way. Now, what I'm going to do, and one of the options that we have available to us is, I've already done this, but if you were to open up an HTTPS connection to show interface IP brief, open up a connection to 10.255.1.32, go ahead and cancel this ping. What you would end up seeing is a web browser pop-up. So let's actually go ahead and do that real quick. Go ahead and pull up Firefox. So I'm on Firefox now. I can come in here and type in https:// and then 10.255.1.32. Hit the enter key, and here I am brought to the ASA's web page. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Advanced. I'm going to accept the risk because I know that it's the ASA has a self-signed certificate that's being presented. And if I wanted to install the ASDM or the Adaptive Security Device Manager, I could do that. I've already got it ready to go, but or I could run Java WebStar through to run the ASDM from there. So that's a couple options. If you want to install it, click on this and it would actually download. If you look in the lower left-hand corner of your screen where it says dm-launcher.msi, it's actually going to install the ASDM on from the ASA onto my PC. Now, I will tell you that this is a virtual ASA feature only, because what will end up happening in a physical ASA is if you don't have the ASDM binary files or the actual package, then this will never ever happen. So make sure you have the ASDM already installed on the ASA in Flash so that you can allow people to download the ASDM in order to manage the firewall. So we're going to actually go ahead and just close out Firefox because we don't really need it. Now, assuming that you've already pulled up the launcher, we have this, and I've already typed in the IP address 10.255.1.32. I'm going to come down here and type in Cisco, and I'm going to click on OK. Now what's going to end up happening is you're going to get this little pop-up. I'm going to say, yep, that's fine, continue, and then you're going to see the ASA software start to load, and we should be able to log in here momentarily, and yep, it's popping up on another screen. We're going to go ahead, and this is the ASDM. And this is one way for you to manage the ASA if you'd like to do so. Now, there are a few different reasons why you would use the ASDM for operations and stuff like that. But for right now, we don't really need to worry about it too much because at this point in time, we're not doing anything crazy with it. But if we wanted to, we could if we wanted to. But for right now, there's some specific things that we could use the ASA or ASDM for. We're not going to do that. I just wanted to show you how to gain access to the ASDM and things like that. But from that perspective, that's pretty much it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the bootstrapping. Fairly straightforward. It gets you up and running. It gets you a default route. things like that, and where everybody is squared away. So if you have any questions or would like to see something else covered, let me know in the comment section down below. And until next time, guys, take it easy.